What is good, you guys? Hope you guys are all doing well. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome. Thanks for clicking on this video. With the Canon EOS R5 and R6 announcement just weeks away from Canon, I thought it might be a good idea to reflect on the last 10 months that I've been using my Canon EOS R, talk about some of the things I do like, what I don't like, but also talk about why the EOS R5 in particular just might not be as great as we think it will be. So to jump right into it, I've actually enjoyed using my Canon EOS R for many reasons. I ended up selling my 1DX Mark II to get the EOS R. I also had a little bit of cash left over for some other gear that I needed. And I never thought of the EOS R as a camera that I would not only like as much as I do, but a camera that I would hold on to for a very long time. I'm probably gonna swap this out for something else in the very near future, potentially the R5, but we'll get to that later in the video. So some of the things that I love about this camera, first off, it's much lighter than the 1DX Mark II. And although I do like heavier, bulkier cameras, it's also been kind of nice, especially when I'm outdoors, hiking, road tripping, traveling, whatever it is. The Canon EOS R's smaller form factor has kind of been something that I've enjoyed coming from the 1DX Mark II. Also, things like the adapter. I got the RF to EF adapter, so I can put my EF lenses on there, but I got it with the control ring, which has been actually very useful and very practical to use. Like, I'm shocked by how such a simple thing can make such a big difference in my workflow when I'm shooting videos. It has just really made my life easier without being extremely gimmicky. Speaking of gimmicky, I think the touch bar on the back was a pretty good idea, but at the same time, my hands are a little big. And because of the smaller form factor of the EOS R, my thumb naturally, like on DSLRs, rests in that touch bar spot. So I oftentimes found myself clicking on things that I didn't even want to. So I actually ended up disabling the touch bar just because it was just too gimmicky and kind of got in the way more than it did practically help. I actually have really enjoyed using a flip out screen. Years ago, one of my first Canon cameras that I used was a 70D, and I loved the flip out screen. But when I moved on to the 5D Mark III and later the 1DX Mark II, that flip out screen, I've just learned to adapt without having the flip out screen. Going back to this and having the full-on touchscreen interface has been actually such a pleasure. It has actually helped my workflow quite a bit, being able to get those closer down shots. Having the touchscreen has been really nice, and the touchscreen on the EOS R is absolutely amazing, and I've just really been enjoying it. When I used my buddy's Canon EOS R when I was first looking into it, the battery life was actually matched the 1DX Mark II, if not was a little longer. I don't know if that's the same on the spec sheet, but just from my personal use, the EOS R battery life has been phenomenal. With weddings and most full day projects, I could go through about a battery and a half to 2 for the full day, which in my opinion, that's actually pretty good for a small little camera like this. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with the specs. It can shoot 60 frames up to full HD, 4K at about 30 frames or 29.97, I think is the actual number, and it can shoot 120 frames at 720p. Now, the footage does look great. Grading Canon C-Log has been actually such a joy. It grades very easily, the colors are amazing. The Canon EOS R video files and video quality has been great and has been working for me, but I'm seeing a lot of limitations to it. I think a lot of the footage coming out of the EOS R is a little bit too digitally sharp, and even when I'm turning down my sharpness on my camera in body settings, I find it to have a little bit too much of that digital look, which I'm really not a fan of. I don't really like that digital look, so that's something I haven't quite enjoyed. That being said, I also haven't quite enjoyed the rolling shutter. It is not the greatest on this camera, and I've noticed some warpage in my footage where I'm just shooting 4K, things kind of like blurring together when I'm moving the camera or even just walking and doing some handheld footage. It can get a little bad, and I'm not really enjoying that part of the camera. Speaking of C-Log, color grading, video footage coming out of the EOS R, one of my least favorite things about the video footage, and a thing that bothers me a lot actually, is the 8-bit color codec. I believe it's 420, and honestly, if you don't get your exposure right, most of your colors in camera right, it's kind of hard to push and pull the colors in post. Like the footage starts to fall apart very quickly. It's hard to really tweak with the footage in here. But if you do get it right in camera and you expose correctly and you've kind of set yourself up for success, it can do fine. But that being said, don't expect to be pulling the C-Log picture profile very far in post color grading, because the codec just can't seem to handle it. So I would love to see 10-bit internal video footage coming out of the EOS R. And that's where I kind of want to transition in talking about the EOS R5, because it's sounding promising. 4K up to 120 frames, full frame completely, C-Log, 10-bit 422 internal in-camera. It's sounding amazing with in-body image stabilization. That's phenomenal. That's great. Like, they're definitely moving in the right direction. That's also not to mention the freaking 8K raw, full frame, full sensor readout footage that you're gonna be able to get out of this camera internally in 10-bit 422 C-Log. That is just dope. It's freaking amazing, and I'm super excited to see what that looks like in actual footage. However, there are downsides to such amazing specs. If you're gonna be shooting an 8K full frame 422 10-bit C-Log, you're probably going to be spending as much on memory cards as you are on the MacBook that you need to be able to edit the footage. Something tells me the footage is going to be very difficult to edit in any software program that you're going to use. I have a feeling the files are going to be humongous. We're all going to have to buy the CF Express memory cards to be able to handle all the data that's being written on the card, which, if there's a lot of data, chances are it's going to look good, but at the same time, it's going to be very expensive and very pricey. So although these specs look amazing and exciting, it's gonna be actually pretty darn expensive for you to go out and shoot a full day's, maybe not a vlog, an 8K raw, but even that client project that you need to shoot. It's going to take a lot of space, and the memory cards are going to be freaking expensive, let alone the processing power that you're going to need on your MacBook, PC, whatever it is. You're going to have a pretty beefy setup to be able to render all that footage. The specs look flashy, but I don't think they're going to be as practical for the majority of us, because it's going to be a little overkill and quite a bit more expensive than all the footage that we're shooting with the cameras that we have right now. That being said, I don't only just want to be a Debbie Downer on the R5. I have a feeling the footage is going to actually look pretty tasty. The 4K 10-bit internal C-Log 422, I have a feeling is going to be actually pretty nice in full frame up to 120 frames, which I'm also excited to just use it and abuse that feature. The in-body stabilization is also looking promising. I hope it has the same battery life as the EOS R, because that would be pretty phenomenal as well. So I'm actually pretty excited about those things. Thank you guys so much for watching and making it this far. That was kind of just some stuff that I kind of wanted to go over and talk about in terms of the EOS R, the R5. Let me know in the comments if you guys are excited for any of those cameras. Share some thoughts with me. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Not, I'm open for discussion. That's what the comment section is for those conversations and discussions. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay tuned. Otherwise, We'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.